How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It is September 3rd, 2023, figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. Saturday, we got a lot to talk about here today. We'll get into the WWE pay-per-view after a while, but obviously the big news is that CM Punk is no longer a part of AEW. He has been terminated for cause, according to Tony Khan. And he's done. Dave, what do we know?
Pretty much that's it. I mean, they did their investigation. I give him credit for announcing it today before the show as opposed to waiting till Monday, which he could have done. But I guess that, he just felt like needed to get it out as soon as possible. But they had video surveillance footage. They already interviewed all the eyewitnesses. They had they had an outside investigation. They interviewed a lot of the wrestlers who were not eyewitnesses, just about the basic situation of what was going on there. And that was the lawyers recommended he be gone. Whatever the disciplinary committee is, and I don't know who that is, recommended he be gone. And Tony Khan made the decision for him to be gone. So, I mean, I know people who were interviewed that were not there, and it was about background, just the history and things like that, along with the people who...
They were asked how things had changed over the last year and what they thought the solution to problems would be.
Yep. A
lot of questions not related to the actual incident, right, but to all of the incidents and everything that had happened over the past year or so.
It was, I mean, he got fired over what happened Sunday, but the lawyers and everybody else, they talked about a lot more than Sunday. They talked about everything, the stuff that's come out, lots of stuff that hasn't come out. And, should it have been sooner? With the benefit of hindsight, of course, it should have been a year ago. But, hindsight, is always whatever. When he came back, who was to say? You know what I mean? It's like, you give him a chance. I mean, I'll tell you the thing that, where I didn't have a good feeling was before it ever started, when he was coming back, when we knew he was coming back, the two times that he tried to, whatever it was, quit or whatever it was, threaten, whatever the story was. The first one was pretty serious. The second one was somewhat. And I knew, like, when it was one time, I thought that was a pretty bad situation. When it was two, I thought, he's not changing. He didn't learn. When he did the promo, it was kind of like, okay, whatever. The first promo when he came back, when he did the interview, just one thing after another. It wasn't going to work. It didn't work. It was a disaster. Let's be serious. It was a disaster. And, there's so much more to it than has come out, but a lot of the big stuff has. And the biggest thing was what happened on Sunday, and just can't keep having this stuff happen every second week.
So the Collision show opened with a speech from Tony where he basically said he had to make one of the toughest decisions of his career, terminated CM Punk from his contracts, by the way, which is what it said in the press release. I don't know if that was a typo, which I find hard to believe in that typo.
No. I mean, he
apparently had multiple contracts.
I think he had multiple deals. He had a performer's contract and an employee contract, I believe. But I'm sure that will all be clarified in the next 48 hours or so.
He said the incident was regrettable. It endangered people backstage. That includes the production staff who put the show on every week, innocent people who had nothing to do with it. He said, in 30 years of going to shows and 4 years of producing shows for AEW, quote, never in all that time have I ever felt until last Sunday that my security, my safety, my life was in danger at a wrestling show. I don't feel anyone should feel that way at work. I don't think the people I work with should feel that way. I had to make a very difficult choice today. So there had been, and I think you put it in the Observer, the stories about when the whole thing went down. People had said that he lunged at Tony.
It was probably stronger than that. I think I was being, and that here's, the funniest thing, and this better than anyone, is that throughout this whole ordeal, you and I were far too kind to him. I mean, that's the reality. We were far too kind to him. I always gave him the benefit of the doubt. I always tried to give his side while everyone didn't want to hear, that they just wanted to go, oh, you're after him and everything like that. But, okay, lunging was, again, far too kind. If you saw the actual wording of what was said, lunging was I was toning it down, it was more than lunging.
And there was also, I had heard that when he moved towards Tony, whatever word you want to use, that monitors, there were like monitors that fell on Tony Khan, and it was, and whatever it was, as you noted, there was security camera footage. So this was not something, people were like, well, how come there wasn't security camera footage of the brawl? Well, it's because that was inside a locker room. They don't have cameras in the locker room.
Yeah,
this was Gorilla, and they had cameras all over the place.
Well, the Gorilla, the setup is at Wembley, where they have that. It's where they do interviews and things like that for soccer games, football, all the time, and other sports and other entertainment. So, yes, there's always cameras in that. It was in a position where there's always cameras running, yes. So that was there. This one had a lot of witnesses. The other one had some witnesses. This one had a lot of witnesses.
Well, the thing with the first one was that there were a small number of people in the room. But as soon as everything happened, then a whole bunch of people came into the room.
Right.
But there weren't like a whole bunch of people in the room when it began. Whereas with this one, there were people all over the place, and so
not just wrestlers. There were production people.
You had witnesses all over the place, and it was filmed. This was a tough one to claim.
Yeah, and there were unaffiliated people. I think the thing, probably the best description was the one it's in the Observer. We got the Jack Perry story, we got the Phil Brooks story. Okay, so they're both there. But the third story, and there's a couple of other stories, but the key one was the unaffiliated non-wrestler story. And, that is what I would call, I don't know it's the most reliable, but it's the, it's neither party, but it's someone who saw it, and it's a non-wrestler. It's not someone who has any stakes in the game or part of either clique or anything close to that. It's just someone who was there working, as many people were, and saw what happened. And there's actually more that may come out this week from other people that were also there. But I'll get into that later this week, probably.
So before the show, I don't have a lot of details about what happened, but there was a meeting before the show, and everybody was told what happened. This was before Collision tonight. And Tony also went out before the crowd and told them. And the interesting thing is if you watch the Dynamite show on Wednesday, if you watch the TV version, I did not hear any chance for CM Punk. People who were there said there were a couple that started that got booed down
on Wednesday. Yeah.
On Wednesday,
and there were on before the show. There were like that as well.
Yes.
There were a couple of chants that got booed down before the show started. Yeah,
and there were a couple on Collision as well. But in general, it was not like the fans hijacked the show or anything of that. It was largely the same deal.
They booed the Young Bucks, though. Even they popped originally for them, that emotional pop to save FTR, but then, they booed them and everything like that. And that was actually the one CM Punk chant when they came out that was not booed down. So, but Tony was booed, in his live appearance. By the end, he kind of got the crowd with him. He was talking about how I grew up here and, I'm from here and, we just came off like the biggest weekend. When he started talking about the biggest weekend in Wembley, he started getting cheered. But, the people knew. it was out and, it was the city where, I don't know that he gets booed anywhere else, but we'll see. There'll be people there will be some people who will boo, but, whatever. It's neither, it doesn't matter. It's turned out how it had to turn out. That's the basic situation. There's a lot of interesting timing to this. Football season starting. The ratings are going to go down. I think that
there are absolutely, many people within AEW that believe that he was trying to get out.
Oh, I can't say because I cannot get into his brain, but yes, there were a lot of people who thought ever since that contract was signed with the Young Bucks and Page and everything that he wanted out and that something was gonna happen. There were people who thought that because the ratings for Collision were so much lower than Dynamite, which we knew going in they would be, and I'm not blaming that on anyone, but the idea that I think the one that was the bad one was the week when Adam Cole and MJF came and the ratings skyrocketed up, and then when they weren't back, they went back down to that below 500,000 level from the 700 plus level with 0.27 to like 0.17, 0.16 level, which was a big drop. And I mean, it said, that was the one that established that Max and Adam Cole are the big draws in the company, and whatever that. And I mean, like, let's face it, 2 weeks from now or a week from now, when college football is hard and heavy and there's multiple games going against them, I mean, it was going down no matter what with him, and it's going to go down more without him. He is a draw. He's the biggest draw. He was the biggest draw on that brand, aside from the week that Max and Adam Cole were on. I mean, you can't take that away from him. But it was from a timing standpoint. I don't know that he's that clever, but I don't know that he's not, that's, there's this, but the way the whole thing went down, I mean, it was, as more and more people talk about it that saw it, the situation is painted, him worse. Now, have you heard anything about Ace Steel?
I've heard nothing about Ace Steel.
Okay. Neither have I.
So the big change with Collision, I suppose we should go over the show right now, is that no more restrictions. And so we had a lot more star power on the show this week. We had Moxley was there, and the Acclaimed were there.
The Acclaimed have been there. The Acclaimed have been there a lot.
We had Britt Baker debuted. The announcer said the long-awaited debut of Britt Baker on Collision. I don't know if she was banned, but this was the first time that she was on the show. Young Bucks obviously were on the show. Who else was on the show? Karshida. Trying to think of who else. And of course, Jay Wine Dax was the main event. But this was all put together kind of at the last second, because I think everybody found out today about Punk. But going forward, I mean, it does not look like this soft brand split, or whatever you want to call it. It appears that is over. And so
inevitably it should be over.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that we actually should discuss, if they get rid of that soft brand split or whatever, is that for the talent, they're going to be asked to work both shows. This is not like a great schedule to like fly into a city on Wednesday, fly home, be home for a day, and then fly to a different city and then fly home. It would be easier if you
that's what WWE does, though.
Well, sure, but they also have some house shows on the road. We're talking flying in for a show.
But half the talent doesn't work the house shows.
Well, I mean, it would certainly be easier if you had a Wednesday, Thursday schedule. But I'm not sure what the situation is in terms of, does Collision have to be live? I mean, the show they did last week did a good number, and it was not live. It was a taped show. And, I don't know what the requirements are. Because remember when during the pandemic, when there was questions like, why doesn't Raw tape? And it was like something like they had to do a certain number of live shows or something.
Yeah, Raw and SmackDown contract only allowed them a couple of shows a year to be taped in the contract, and they were scared to death that like Fox, not so much USA, but they were scared that Fox might invoke the contract and cancel them because nobody knew what was going on then. Everybody was scared. I don't think there was ever a chance. And I even said when people brought that up, it's like, why do you have to go live? It's not like if you tape, anyone's going to know. You're taping with a closed set. It's not like there's no fans there. So it doesn't even matter. And it's like, well, the contract only allows us to tape a certain, number of shows a year. And it's just like, and you can't trust Fox not to, use that as a way to breach the contract. It's like, look, what are they going to do? They got 2 hours every Friday night. They need programming, and the programming is going to do a lot better than anything else they can put in that time slot. So, but, it was one of those things where at that point, because of the pandemic and nobody knew the future of anything, that there were no chances being taken.
So we had a segment with Ricky Starks where he basically cut this promo about how rug got pulled out from under me again. I could practically cry, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to climb up and get better and overcome. And he said, I was sitting at home during the biggest show we ever did, all because of Ricky Steamboat. And so I'm calling him out right now because I want a strap match. So Steamboat comes out.
Well, Tony Schiavone set the stage very well by saying that it was absolutely ridiculous that he challenged a 70-year-old man.
Yes.
So, they set the stage of that this is...
You're not going to get what you think you're going to get.
Well, not that, and also just the idea, because there's going to be some people who, are so into nostalgia and everything that just, Ricky Steamboat's going to wrestle. And he shot that down, because maybe you would go in there and go, we want to see Ricky Steamboat win last time, and think it's the Ricky Steamboat that wrestled Jericho all those years ago, and that was a lot of years ago now, but that's the last time people saw him. He was old and great. So it's kind of like the idea of, maybe, for one night he can do that again. But Tony pointed out he's 70 years old. This is preposterous to basically set that whole thing up.
So out comes Ricky Steamboat, and he says, listen, let me tell you something. I've got a contract. It's got my name on it, your name on it. Look, here's a contract. He opens it up. It says, Ricky Starks versus the Dragon. He says, sign the contract. So Starks signs, and then Steamboat says, people know me as the Dragon, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the Dragon Ricky Steamboat, but they also know this guy. And Bryan Danielson's music hits, and he comes out as the American Dragon. The fans chant, you fucked up. Bryan signs the contract. So it is Bryan Danielson versus Ricky Starks tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
In a no DQ strap match.
Yes.
This guy's not supposed to be back tomorrow.
Well, he is.
He's not supposed to be. You just wrote about it 2 days ago.
Well,
that it was touch and go for October.
No. He was going to be back in October. October was the scheduled return, and it was touch and go for mid-September. It was essentially touch and go for the New York show. And I figured he was going to debut on the Seattle shows, if not the New York show. So it's 17 days earlier. He was healing better than expected, and it's earlier than I expected, put that way, and that's from, being appraised of the situation. It's earlier. I was surprised.
Well, you know what I think they should do? I think they should.
He's a team player.
They should wrap that thing up real tight, and they should put the strap right there, so he can't use the arm at all.
I guess, man.
I don't know, dude.
It's like I was hoping that it would be Adam Page because he's not even on the card, and he has kind of been, as a single, kind of been forgotten in a lot of ways ever since the Texas Death Match. With Moxley, and I thought it was a good chance to get him in a key position. But I do understand, given the nature of the circumstances, that Danielson is better in the spot because Hangman there was a good chance Hangman would get booed, which is, especially in Chicago, but which is neither here nor there. Whereas Danielson's not going to get booed in that situation. And also, in that situation where you're losing, even though the Punk Starks match was never announced, people know that's where it was going. They know that. And so as a replacement, I think the surprise replacement for a guy who you didn't expect is a lot more like if it came down to the situation as it was presented and you could get Danielson, it is a superior choice to Page, even though, again, is it early? I don't know. It's quicker than I expected. Put it that way.
Moxley did this great promo on the Orange Cassidy. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Basically put this guy over huge. Like, man, everyone called him a cosplay wrestler, someone who could only do matches in VFW halls.
Who was he cosplaying? Well,
that's what he says. Who was he cosplaying? He's the winningest champion in all of pro wrestling. What have those other guys done?
Yeah.
He says, you wrestle all the greats. Sunday's a chance that comes once in a lifetime because Orange is on the run of a lifetime. And he says, we're going to find out one way or the other on Sunday. I'm going to target not your arm or your hand or your leg. I'm going to target your soul, your heart, your guts. And he says, there's a lot of guys that want to be great wrestlers, but they don't really want to be great wrestlers. Once it gets hard, they look for a way out, he said. When it gets hard Sunday, and it's going to get hard, you're going to look for your way out. But I hope you don't.
I think that might have been a cryptic remark.
There were a lot of cryptic remarks on this show.
Yes,
and you know what? I hope they all stop. I hope we all just move on.
I agree.
Everyone just move on.
Yep.
And just... We don't need cryptic remarks and offhanded comments and the whole 9 yards. Just move on. We had Daniel Garcia and Daddy Magic versus Angelo Parker versus The Acclaimed. And it was fun while it lasted. We had Daddy on Daddy Violence. All three babyface did their finish on Magic for the pin. And that just...
It was okay.
Yeah, it was fine.
I didn't, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't offensive or anything like that, but I didn't think it was anything special either.
We had a Dark Order promo about the Ring of Honor Tag Team title match at All Out.
Man, I will never get this match.
There were a lot of inside references on this one. The Nightcrawlers, Budge.
Yeah, from the old...
yes.
Yeah, being the Elite stuff when they were supposed to be Adam Cole's best friends, yeah.
Then we had Tony with Ricky Starks backstage, and Starks says he's going to show Danielson who he is. He is what he says he is. Then we had Nick Wayne and Commander versus Aussie Open. It's a good match. And they gave Nick a ton there at the end until they killed him with the Coriolis.
I have no idea why Nick took the pin. And Commander did nothing.
No.
He did nothing. I was shocked.
This was basically a 2-on-1 match, is what it was.
Yeah.
So then Tony goes to interview Nick. And Nick says, man, I'm frustrated. But I'm more frustrated that Darby forgave A.R. Fox for what he did to me. And so Darby comes out, and he says, I'm going to explain why I forgave A.R. Fox. I've known Nick since he was 8 years old. Not a secret his father trained me. I saw you on my first day of wrestling school. And do you know what happened between your father and me? There was a time when I didn't talk to your father or mother or you for 3 years. I got in a big fight with him, and I burned that bridge. And before I could make things right, he passed away, and I have to live with that every single day, Nick. I wish I could have made things right. A.R. Fox was also one of my trainers. I cannot live with the hate. I've had to let it go. That's why I forgave him so fast. Find it in your heart to let it go. This Sunday, I'm fighting for the TNT title. I want you to be in my corner. Now, I don't know all the details here.
Is that a true story?
But that's mostly and maybe fully a true story. Okay. Because there was a falling out at some point.
Yeah, and I figured the way he said it that was a true story, but I didn't know the details. Yeah,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could probably find out, but for sure, it probably was all true. But I know that they did have a falling out at one point, and he left and trained elsewhere. And I'd heard about it at the time, but I didn't get all the details or anything like that. But I'm presuming that's all true.
Yeah.
So then Christian's music hits, and he comes out. And he says, it was rude for me to say all those things about your father, Nick. I forgot to ask what your mother's name is. I know she's not here tonight. Maybe I should slide into her DMs and change that. And speaking of your parents, he goes, speaking of your parents, you didn't talk to Nick's parents, Darby, for 2 years? And the fans start going, 3!
3 years.
And Christian,
laughing.
He stops and he looks and he realizes he fucked up. And he's trying so hard, and he starts laughing. And then they cut to the ring, and Darby and Nick are they're trying so hard to keep a straight face as he's laughing that he fucked this whole thing up.
Yeah.
And then he says, anyway, he's your personal pity project. He says, Darby, you're a loser in life. Carry a towel to ringside, Nick, because you're going to be throwing that thing in the ring to stop this match.
Oh, so we now we know what the storyline is.
That's what they're teasing.
Oh, yeah, they're teasing something here.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, didn't we just see that in NXT?
Yeah, we did actually
with Andre Chase. Yeah,
and it was with another 19-year-old actually.
Yes.
That had the towel thrown in.
Yeah.
Now she's a juvenile delinquent.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going that way with poor Nick. Then Claudio and Yuta did a promo from Wednesday, which is ridiculous.
That was quite weird.
So Claudio's there with Yuta, and he goes, Eddie, you beat Yuta? Well, guess what? And he gives him the big uppercut, and he goes, we beat him up every day. We beat him up all the time. He keeps getting up again. He says, I saw
at the end, he didn't get up.
He just collapsed. He said, I saw that video of you in Japan, Eddie, crying.
Being like a little schoolgirl.
Giddy like a little schoolgirl, he says.
Around Kawada, yeah.
I thought I couldn't lose any more respect for you. But yeah, and he walks off, and then Yuta collapses. Then Eddie does a promo, and he says, Claudio, I know you won't fight me again. You're a coward. And Shibata, he says, what do you think of Claudio and Yuta? And Shibata has his phone translation gimmick, and it says, you both suck. And we had a Saraya and Ruby promo backstage, setting up the match for later. Then, did we ever have a segment? You know, I don't watch basketball.
I sometimes do.
So I've not seen Dennis Rodman since about 1998.
And there he was.
He's old now. I realize I am too, but like...
He's old, of course.
For some reason, I expected him to come out like it was 1998, but he's in fact 62 years old.
It's 25 years ago.
Yeah, he's 25 years older. So then Jarrett comes out, and long story short, they want him to join their oddities group. And man, he would fit in great. But, he doesn't want to.
He might be too expensive.
So he ends up going after Sanjay, and then they hit the ring, and the Acclaimed run down. Long story short, it's Acclaimed versus Jarrett's crew for the Trios titles tomorrow, and Rodman is in the Acclaim's corner.
God, I hope.
And this was definitely a segment that occurred on this show, let me tell you.
Man, I hope he doesn't cost too much, because it's like, the value of a celebrity, whether it's Rodman or, whoever you're going to get, Mike Tyson, it's not so much with the wrestling audience, but it's about getting mainstream attention for your product and your company, because the celebrity can get that attention. And I don't know that Rodman right now is that guy, but we'll find out. I guess we only have 24 hours. And I haven't seen anything anywhere. No. I mean, when you spring it 24 hours, and again, it could be something to where, Tony feels like he needs to make good on something or whatever, but because of everything that happened. But I only hope he came relatively inexpensive, because if he came expensive, I don't think you're getting much value out of him. But we'll see.
Interviews.
And plus, it's unpredictable what he's going to do.
Yes.
I mean, he fell asleep in a match once.
He did. That was a different time. Interviews with Shane Taylor and Samoa Joe about the match. Joe's a great promo. And then we had Britt Baker, Hikaru Shida, and Chris Statlander versus Toni Storm, Ruby, and Saraya. And there were two spots in this match. One of them, Britt and Shida almost ran into each other. And the other was Toni trying to break up a pin, but she fell on Saraya. It actually looked like she hurt her arm. And Saraya ended up spraying Britt behind the ref's back, and Ruby pinned her.
So much for that idea of Britt challenging for the title, because she had that pin in that four-way in London.
Yeah, well,
I would not have pinned Britt at all after that, the way they did that last finish. I just thought that they'll probably do something out of it, but I don't know that, obviously they didn't add a title match to this pay-per-view,
I have no idea where they're going, but they had the Britt and Shida thing at the pay-per-view. Britt and Shida had an issue here. Saraya cost Britt the match because she's the one that sprayed her in the eyes. So I presume that it's like they're going to do Britt and Shida, and the winner of that gets Saraya. That's where I think they're going, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I guess they didn't want to pin Chris Statlander, and
they're not going to pin Statlander.
Yeah, so that was the way they went.
Speaking of, there's a Chris Statlander promo, and this thing was like 20 seconds, but it was like the best women's segment on AEW in a generation. She's back there doing this promo, and she's talking about how he's Ruby can't win without her spray can and everything. And then Ruby and Saraya show up, and Ruby's cutting this promo on her, this great promo. And Saraya finally pushes Ruby out of the way, and she goes, "Shut up, you stupid bitch, she'll see tomorrow." And everyone, like the announcers go, "Holy shit," and the crowd gasps, and everyone was like, "Holy smokes." This segment was great. This made it seem like tomorrow was going to be like, stuff's going down in that match tomorrow. And we had Powerhouse Hobbs.
I didn't feel anything.
You need to watch the promo again, dude. You need to watch it again. It was great.
I watched it and it was just like, oh God.
No.
Ruby Soho was good in it, but it was kind of like, it's still Ruby Soho and Chris Statlander, and I can only get so excited about that match. Even though I saw it in Vegas, I think it was Vegas, and it wasn't a bad match or anything like that before.
We had Hobbs coming out. Miro's music hit. They had a brawl.
Well, Hobbs pinned one of the local guys. I forgot. GPA, I think.
Really? Wow. Wait, I skipped through commercials, and apparently that was one quick squash right there.
There's an 8-second match.
That's quick!
It was
8 seconds?
Yes, there was an 8-second match. Let me see. And the guy was a local guy who got, where is it?
Dude, we've already spent more time.
GBA, he's a local guy. He got a big pop, and then Hobbs spine busted him in 8 seconds.
All right. Then we had Orange Cassidy promo, which was another very good promo. And he says, "In this city, in Chicago, in this building, on my first AEW singles match against Pac, I proved I deserved to be here. Then it was Will Ospreay. Proved I could stand with the best in the world. Sunday it's Moxley. He's just the best," he says. "Picked AEW up when it was down, put all the weight on his shoulders. But this Sunday I'm going to beat him, take the weight off his shoulders, and put it on mine." And the main event was Jay White and Dax. And
good wrestling match.
It was a good match. Didn't have a lot of heat because there really were no stakes. It was just Jay White versus Dax. Yeah. And everybody was out at ringside. And Dax tried a cradle at the end. White kicked out, hit the Blade Runner for the pin. It
was a Blade Runner on the floor, and then, which you would probably think was the finish. I mean, they did a nice match. And then, Harwood got the cradle, and then he got out of the cradle, and then he hit another Blade Runner and pinned him sort of clean, cleaner than I expected it to be.
I mean, it was definitely clean.
Yeah.
And then the heels went after FTR. Young Bucks ran down to make the save, cleared the ring, offered the handshake, but this time FTR walked out on them.
Mm-hmm.
That sets up the 8-man for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a Collision show. So tomorrow is All Out, and this is the lineup for the show. We've got 13 matches if you include the pre-show. So the pre-show has Athena, Mercedes Martinez, and Diamante versus Sheeta, Willow Nightingale, and Sky Blue.
So the deal here is that Billy Starks didn't get cleared because his original idea for the show was Athena and Billy Starks, if Billy Starks get cleared, for the Ring of Honor Championship. So I'm not sure why he couldn't have put, let's say Sheeta against Athena in a championship match. Just had a championship match. But that's the decision.
We've got the over-the-budget Battle Royal with no announced names yet.
Yeah, and it's just a deal where, if you remember, the original All In had an over-the-budget Battle Royal, and so he's just kind of copying. That's what it is copying the original All In.
Then we've got the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn versus Jarrett, Satnam, and Jay Lethal for the 6-man titles. That's the pre-show. So the main show, Luchasaurus and Darby Allin for the TNT title with Christian and Nick Wayne in the corners. We've got Miro versus Powerhouse Hobbs. Statlander versus Ruby Soho, TBS title. Orange Cassidy, John Moxley for the AEW International title, which I presume is the main event. Kenny Omega versus Takeshita. We got Bullet Club Gold versus FTR, 8-man tag, and the Young Bucks. We got Adam Cole and MJF versus Dark Order, Reynolds and Silver for the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. Samoa Joe, Shane Taylor for the television title. Eddie Kingston and Shibata versus Claudio and Wheeler. And Bryan Danielson and Ricky Starks in a strap match.
I mean, there's a lot. And it's probably going to be a good card, but I'm still like when they ran that thing down, I continue to be baffled. Like Adam Cole and MJF on a pay-per-view. against the Dark Order. I don't care how the backstory of the Dark Order and Adam Cole. I just don't get it. I mean, a lot of the matches will be good. And I think, given the situation, I think that the guys are going to be working extra hard. Not that they don't always work hard, but I do feel that there's going to be people working extra hard to kind of like kick off a new era in the company, which is kind of like what it is, and it's going to be tough. They got to pick that thing back up again. And, look, you don't have Adam Page, you don't have Jericho, you don't have any of the major championships at stake. I mean, it's a unique show. It feels like one of those Friday shows where you have Battle of the Belts and, something else together.
We had the WWE Payback show, and two matches I think really stood out were the cage match and the tag team title match.
Tag team title match was really good, but my God, it was like watching frickin' House of Torture. Better match, but it's like there was so much interference on this show, to begin with. And the other thing is weird. Now, what happened at WrestleMania with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns?
Well, Roman Reigns beat him.
And how?
With a spear?
And how much interference?
There's plenty of interference, yes.
Okay, so Cody got screwed by Jey Uso, and it's just like, Jey, it's so great, and it's just like, dude, I watched WrestleMania.
I mean, like, back.
at least, even if you want to say, like, let bygones be bygones.
I think it was Solo, actually, that screwed him.
No, but they all
they all were there.
They all screwed him. I mean, Solo was the final one.
Yes.
But, they were all there.
Prime offender.
Yeah.
Well, this guy's turned over a new leaf, Dave. You have to have forgiveness.
Well, if he said that, I would be fine with it. But they didn't even acknowledge it. They acted like they were buddies, It's like that WrestleMania finish never happened. Or it's like that match, like, whatever.
Well, the show opened up with Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch in a cage match. And I thought that all things considered, they did a great job. Although, this reminded me of was that, and you'll love this analogy. This reminds me of Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not allowed to blade, and so instead they're ramming their faces into the side of this fucking cage, and like Trish has got this hematoma on her head that's sticking 3 inches out.
Yes,
and
Trish
they show Becky later, and she's all cut up and everything because her face is going to the cage. It's like, it'd be a lot easier to just go, and that'd be it. That's all I got to do. But no, they've got to...
But that's barbaric.
What was barbaric was watching them do this in this match. It was barbaric.
Yeah.
But they had a hell of a match. They worked very hard. Trish is unbelievable.
She did a great job.
For her age and for how long she's been out and just coming back and fitting right in. Like, she doesn't look out of place at all. And
she did a good match. But, I mean, she did in some of the other matches, but not this one.
She did a great job here. And then Zoe, of course, ends up hitting the ring. And this...
But here's the thing. Okay, so the whole reason we had a cage match...
was to keep her out.
Was to keep her out, and she was still got in. So it's like, to me, it's like... That's the one negative I have to say about it, even though I understand that, the whole thing was at the end, Zoe laid out Trish. Trish is gone, and Zoe, I guess Zoe's going to be a babyface, right? But the idea of...
It seemed to be.
Zoe being, positioned there to become a star, so I understand that. But when you build a cage match with the idea that this is going to prevent somebody from interfering, who then interferes in the match with no repercussions, no attempt to get her out or anything, it's just kind of like...
Well, that's the big thing. It's like they opened the door because Trish was trying to climb out. Okay, so the door's open. Well, Zoe then starts to grab her, and she gets dragged into the cage. And if you've ever watched a WWE cage match, there's a referee in the ring, there's a referee outside the ring, there's officials all over the place. How about you get her, or shut the door, or something? But they just left it open, and she got in. And, I will say that Becky ended up beating her up and beating up Trish, so she beat up both of them and got the win clean with the manhandled slam off the middle rope. So, at the end, it'd have been a lot worse if Zoe would have run in and then Trish would have won.
And Trish would have won, yeah.
Yes, at least she got in there and then Becky still won the match. But, afterwards, Trish screams at Zoe. They get in an argument. Trish slaps her. Zoe then gives her finish and lays her out. So it looks like a babyface turn there. But, I mean, this was the second best match on the show, I thought.
Easily.
I thought this was significantly better than the main event. And
easily the second best match on the show. I only thought that this match and the tag team title match were the only matches that were really good.
Yes.
I actually
and this
thought
was only slightly below the tag team title match, I thought.
Yeah. I mean, the tag team title match to me was clearly the best match. But it had even more outside interference. I mean, it was like, that's where it felt like House of Torture, because it was just like, then this person interferes, then this person interferes, then this person. It's not like, I mean, it's just over and over.
Yeah, but you know what? That one didn't bother me as much because it was a street fight. Whereas these House of Torture matches or these it's just like, there's supposed to be rules in those matches, and they're just not enforced.
Okay,
at least this was a street fight. It had the most heat of anything on the show, and the people were into all of it. So I don't necessarily advocate for it, but it wasn't like it was a failure in any way. It was just like a lot of people got involved for this particular story.
Yeah, but I mean, there was no attempt for them, for anyone to like, like there's all these people interfering constantly in this match, and there was no attempt by like Adam Pearce or anyone to stop it. I just thought it was over and over and over. That's why I felt like a House of Torture match. But yes, it was, it was a great match though, overall, and easily had the most heat. I thought as far as the rest, it felt like a TV show in a lot of ways.
Well, Cena came out to do a promo, and he announced he was going to be the guest referee for the Miz LA Knight match. Miz then came out and literally cut a promo to design for Cena to say, we'll all be the guest referee, even though he already did. Yeah. So we then had Miz versus LA Knight with John Cena as referee in literally the most generic WWE professional wrestling match you could ever see in like the 1990s.
But it went 6 minutes too long.
It just went on and went on.
I mean, there was a point in this match. I mean, it wasn't like it was ever terrible.
It was not a bad match. It was just a totally generic match.
It was a long match where it just kept going and going, and nothing special happened. The thing that saved it is that LA Knight is very over right now, so the people never turned on it. But it was like, when they announced this match, originally, and they were doing the feud, I thought, all right, they'll go in there, they'll have a nice 8-9 minute match. And they'll get it in there. Somebody convinced them to go this long. And it's like, all it did was tell you, and I think LA Knight's over enough that it's not going to hurt him. But to me, watching it, it's just like, okay, Miz is what Miz is. We already know. But LA Knight is also what Miz is.
Yes.
And that should be what you're trying to hide, that he's not.
The people are into LA Knight, but this match was essentially Miz versus Miz with Miz as the referee. That's what this was, because John Cena was a total robot.
Yeah.
And so Miz won, that being LA Knight, hit the LA elbow and the LA stunner, got the pin.
BFT.
And then Cena endorsed him, and he smiled.
Well, they do this thing where they're on the ramp, and they're mouthing off at each other. Cena takes off his shirt like he's going to fight him. And then Cena, offers his hand. They shake hands. Cena raises his hand. So, yeah, the idea, oh, my God, John Cena just endorsed him.
Cena should have raised his hand, and LA Knight should have given him his stunner. Laid him out is what he should have done.
Well, actually, he would have gotten over more had he done that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he would have.
That's what The Rock would have done, or Steve Austin.
Well, that's what Steve Austin would have done for sure, yeah.
Austin Theory, Rey Mysterio, got another one.
It was okay.
I went from Miz versus LA Knight to Austin Theory. Like, was Vince about to go to bed, and we just had to get all these matches out of the way?
This not match, involved.
They had the longest fucking chin lock I ever saw in my life on a pay-per-view here. Just held him and held him and held him. Then Rey makes his comeback. Theory cuts him off, goes for the 8-down down, gets cradled, pinned. It existed, this match.
You know what's funny is was it Michael Cole? I think maybe it might have been Corey brought up, but they had a discussion about, have you ever seen anyone get over so quickly in their career as Austin Theory? And I'm thinking like
everybody else,
like 1,000 people,
yes.
and Michael Cole I think said only Randy Orton. It's like, like Brock Lesnar, who wasn't world champion within an instant, or Kurt Angle, who wasn't a superstar on day one, and it could go. But this guy who's been
The Rock,
the Rock. I mean, but Kurt, just a million people, right? And this guy who's been years in independence and then in developmental, and he's still average. I mean, this guy is like the epitome. He's the epitome of an average wrestler, but he's got a good body and he's kind of tall and they like him and he's got a good arrogance and everything like that. And they see he's easy to hate. So, I mean, he's got that going for him. But I mean, look, he's in the ring, and granted they kept the match short. Okay. But he's in the ring with Rey Mysterio. Okay. And I mean, like, I've seen Rey Mysterio get good matches out of people who are incompetent. I mean, incompetent. And this was at best, it was at best a little better than average. At worst, it was average. It was just a match, and whatever. I mean, it's like when you're on the big stage and you're in there with Rey Mysterio. It's like it's your time to shine, and he did not shine.
We had Becky promo, and then Tiffany Stratton walked up and said, I said that I wanted to be the greatest NXT champion of all time, better than anyone, including you, Becky, but I actually forgot that you were never the champion, and so I'm sorry for mistakenly calling you a former champion.
So I guess they're
Becky's
going in that
furious, and they basically tease she's going to be there on Tuesday. So
yeah, but I guess they're going to just do a match, whether it's in NXT or somewhere else. But obviously this says that they're high on Tiffany Stratton, which we already know.
We had Finn Balor, Damian Priest versus Sammy and Kevin Owens for the tag team titles. Steel City Street Fight match was great. All sorts of crazy spots. Kevin Owens got totally busted open. He's bleeding everywhere.
How did he get her cut? Because I didn't see that.
I don't know. He just came up. They did a spot where they were beaten up, and then they both came up wearing Penguins jerseys, and he's bleeding everywhere. And they tried to towel him off and everything, but I mean, they didn't stop the match. They didn't make a big thing out of it. He was running around with blood all over the place.
Well, they couldn't, because if they had tried to do that, people would have turned on it immediately.
Well, funny you say that, Dave, because they did that at WrestleMania in a cage match, and they had no compunction about doing it then.
Yeah,
but they did not do it here, thank God.
Well, I think that Levesque's in charge now.
Now, that's true. WrestleMania was not. He was not his show.
Yeah.
So Sammy, he's running wild. Kevin's running wild, and then finally JD gets involved, and
Rhea Ripley gets involved.
Rhea gets involved.
Dominic gets involved.
And so JD almost got killed with a spinebuster on the edge of the announce table. Rhea gives Kevin a spear through the barricade. Finn hits Sammy with a drop kick, misses the coup de grace. Sammy goes for the kick. Dom breaks it up with a briefcase shot. Finn pins Sammy. Mm-hmm. They win the tag team titles.
So the deal is now they all have belts.
They all have belts.
Yeah.
And, I thought this match was just great.
Great match.
Great match.
Great match, yeah.
Then we had the Grayson Waller effect, where he calls out Cody. Cody hems and haws for a while. Then he says, and he did say this, Dave, I hope I don't regret this, he says. My announcement is we have a new Raw roster member. It is main event Jey Uso. And so Cody then leaves because he's done his job. And then Grayson says, you've done nothing on your own. You're not going to be a big deal on Mondays. So Jey super kicks him. He lays him out. And then Grayson Waller goes on his social media and he ices his face with a Pepsi can. Mm-hmm. Rhea Ripley, Raquel Gonzalez for the women's title.
We should actually bring that up. There's a couple things we should bring up, but we'll, after the thing when it comes to the Punk stuff. But one of them is...
Sounds like you're bringing them up now. Go ahead.
I guess I'm going to bring it up now, yes. So, number one is that the nature of this firing, because it was not a contract buyout, which is what I think he had hoped for, this cost, it's like this cost him like many millions of dollars. Because he had a couple of years. It's cost him many millions of dollars on the thing. But also, being fired, he can go to WWE. So for people, he can. I don't know if it might be if there's a waiting period or anything like that, the way the termination, papers were signed and everything like that. But he can go to WWE, and it's going to be very interesting because WWE did turn him down, although he couldn't have gone. He couldn't have gone, but they did turn. When he wanted to go, the decision was made. So I don't know if they actually turned him down, but when he wanted to go before, which would have been like about 10 months ago, thinking that he could get out of the contract and thinking he could get a buyout, to go there, they made the decision not to use him then. That doesn't mean they'll make that decision now. And I know when before he came to AEW, when Fox was pressuring them to sign him, Vince basically said, we'll sign anyone but him. So, I mean, he may go there. There'll be, it will get a big pop from the audience. It will help ratings short term, first, couple weeks, without a doubt. Probably help interest in some ways. Do they want to do that? I mean,
So you're telling me that they had no interest in him after the first fight, but you think they could have interest in him after a subsequent fight?
You just don't know. I mean, it's different people in charge. It's a different time. When they said they had no, you have to remember when they said they had no interest in him. The key is that they couldn't get him anyway because he was under contract to the other guys. So it's very easy to say we have no interest in a guy that they don't like because they can't get him anyway. It's like if they really could get him, would they have said that? And I don't know the answer, and I still don't know the answer to this one. I mean, I could see it going either way. I could see them giving him a try, but I could also see them going like, oh God, look at what happened in AEW. Do we really want that happening here? Or they could go in there and go, well, it won't happen here because they're incompetent and we're competent, and it could never happen. And they could go with the ideas, first time he screws up, we'll get rid of him anyway, so we'll give him a chance to screw up. So, I mean, anything's possible, is what I'm saying. But the other thing, too, is that story that broke with the idea that there was, like, this meeting that they got canceled.
Oh, yes.
Tell me about it.
Well, there was no meeting scheduled. And when the story was that, in the timing of this, the story came out today that like a week ago,
of course it did.
There was a meeting planned with CM Punk and the Elite. They were all going to sit down, and there was no meeting planned. And when the Elite were approached about the meeting, they said no. So that's the story.
Yeah.
Rhea Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez for the women's title. So they had a Mean Girl match. Okay, so the deal here is that they went way freaking too long. There was no heat in this match. And, I mean, they tried, but when you have, I mean, it's a 6-match show, so all the matches were long. But this one was very long. But the other thing, too, is by this point, I think after the street fight, they just wanted Seth Rollins. They wanted the main event. I think that the mentality of the way they booked it was, the people are going to really want to see Rhea. And I would have thought that too. That's a good place to put her because she's super, super over. And this match has been built up on TV for a long time. But as soon as this match started, it was just like, man, this show is long by WWE standards. And the people are ready for the main event. And okay. So keep this one at 10 minutes, which of course they did not do. Well, I think the other thing too is that Rhea is kind of like a Goldberg in the sense that, she's pushed as like this dominant woman that's, just destroys the men. Like they push her a better version of China.
Yeah.
And I don't think people want to see her doing long 50-50, 13-minute matches or whatever. I think they want to see her go in and kill people, which is what she does in 90% of her matches.
Yeah, this was 17 minutes. It was a lot longer, and it felt.
Oh
longer.
My God, it was that long.
It felt longer to me too. It felt 25. But I mean, she even dressed like China. But yeah, they wanted to be China. But China never did long matches, but that's because China wasn't any good in the ring. But Rhea is good. The match was fine. It's just that the people, I mean, sometimes when you're on a pay-per-view and you go late, I mean, the thing is, when you put the match on late, this one should have just been kept short. That's the problem, and it wasn't, and it dragged, and it just dragged, yeah.
Well, they had they pounded on each other. Dom got involved, and finally Raquel grabs him, power slams him. Maria kicks out her bad knee, hits her riptide, pins her. Cheap finish, but I did think that they worked hard, and
they tried.
It was overall. I thought it was overall a good match, but it was too long. And that actually is the same story as the main event. And the thing with the main event to me was it was Nakamura Rollins for the world title. I was excited for this match because I thought the Nakamura promos were awesome. I thought we might even get a title change. But
I never thought for a second, and nobody else did either.
A second? Come on.
No, nobody thought there was going to be a title change.
Come on. You could have easily done a title change here. But anyway, they went a long-ass time.
26 minutes.
And it was slow going. It was not boom, boom, boom.
Well, it was 26 minutes. You're not going to go fast with these. But this, I thought Seth was really good, and I thought that, Nakamura, essentially came to the United States because, his body was beat up from Japan, and, he wanted, I don't want to say it's like he could get by. I mean, he knew in WWE you can get by on doing a lot less and charisma. And he had a lot of charisma. The problem is he's been there so long and he's been pushed to a certain level. So it's like his charisma was not enough to go through 26 minutes with Seth Rollins in this kind of a match. The match was fine, but like if it had been a 12-minute match and it would have been a match on the card, lower on the card, it would have been fine. It was very lacking by WWE main event standards. I just thought it was like really way below a normal WWE main event. It was not that there was anything wrong with it, and I thought Seth worked like a main eventer, and I thought that Nakamura worked like a guy on the card.
Well, at the end of this 26 minutes, they're going back and forth, and Seth goes for the stomp. Nakamura hits him with a knee. They do a cradle. Seth gives him a stomp. He collapses. And even though throughout this show, one match after another, somebody did a big move and then collapsed and was too slow to cover and the other person kicked out, in the fucking main event, he hits the stomp, he collapses.
Yeah, I thought
slowly
Nakamura
crawls over and makes a cover.
I thought for sure Nakamura was kicking out.
Pins him.
I was sure Nakamura was kicking out because he was so slow in making the cover. The other thing on this, that it's like, okay, so the story of the match that they're trying to tell to get you into it is that Nakamura can win because Seth's got a bad back. Okay, at one point Seth does the superplex, which he does in every match, every big match, and most TV matches as well. The superplex Falcon Arrow spot. So he does the superplex. And they're just going like, he's got a bad back, oh God, like this. And it's just like, he said he's had a bad back for 4 years. In that 4 years, in almost every single match, he does this exact spot. And now it's just like,
yes.
What?
Ever since it was announced that he had a broken back, now he is just destroyed. He's physically destroyed.
But he's doing the exact same match.
Exactly.
He always does.
Exactly.
All the same moves. Like he didn't sell the back in any. I mean, they worked over the back, but he didn't sell the back like it was broken or anything like that. Or he's in. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, yeah, it was like a typical. It's like a typical wrestling match, and he did his normal moves. And, he's really good.
So they do the match, and he gets the pin. And then Nakamura is kind of moving around ringside. He's all angry.
Muto was there, too.
You're wondering, like, what's this guy going to do? And then you're waiting, is Damian Priest's music going to hit? What's going to happen?
And the show ends.
And the show just ended.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that was that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before we go, you have any comments on the Smackdown show?
I don't know.
I actually thought that The Miz and LA Knight did a good promo.
I do.
Their promo work the last two shows was significantly better than the actual match.
Well, you knew that going in. Yeah, I thought that was very good. I thought that, Cena was kind of there and, got really, really over. And, so they did the match with Grayson Waller and Austin Theory against Rey and Santos Escobar, where Theory took out Escobar's knee. So Escobar has got this bad knee. He's not selling it the entire match or anything like that. But then he gets the knee taken out by Theory, and then Waller uses the rolling stunner and pins him. They didn't really tease anything with him and Rey too much there. Lashley was out with the Street Profits.
Actually, they had one other thing. There were a couple of segments backstage with AJ and the Good Brothers, and they are strongly teasing that the Good Brothers are going to turn on AJ. Because there's always a problem, and the Good Brothers like, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And AJ's like, it is a big deal.
Well,
Jimmy Uso interrupted a meeting with Adam Pearce and Meechin.
So she's all mad. She comes back to them, and they're like, who cares? Don't worry about it. And then AJ finds out, and he's pissed, and they're still going like, who cares? We don't want to get involved in bloodline business. Essentially, is what it was.
2 times this happened on the show.
Right. We don't want to get involved in the bloodline business.
Clearly leading to something here.
And AJ ends up, of course, wrestling Solo Sikoa, so he's in bloodline business. And in fact, AJ loses, and the Good Brothers never come out to help him, even though he loses due to outside interference. So, that's kind of there.
Lashley and Street Profits segment where they basically just thanked Lashley.
Yeah.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of thanking. Let's see. What else do we have?
There was
Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde. Just a 2-minute match.
Like a 2-minute match, yeah. They squashed them quicker than I would have expected. Especially because they could have had a really good match. The main event was AJ and Solo. Of course, Solo won due to interference from Jimmy Uso. And Jimmy Uso earlier had, basically said that he's not with the Bloodline, he's not with Paul Heyman, and then at the end of the show, or at the end of the match, Solo wants to spike Jimmy. Heyman kind of stops him. They leave, and then, Jimmy pretty much acts like he wants to get back in the Bloodline, even though he said he didn't want to get back in the Bloodline, and said that, and was ripping on Roman and ripping on Paul Heyman.
So that was the Smackdown show, everybody, and that's the show for today, but we will be back tomorrow because, of course, Sunday is all out, and so we'll have more, I'm sure, on the fallout from the CM Punk situation, because I'm sure we'll hear something one way or the other from the crowd tomorrow, and we'll have the results of all the pay-per-view and everything like that, and any other news. So Dave and Garrett were up yesterday. Benny and I were up tonight. We'll be up tomorrow as well. So basically 5 shows over the last couple of days. So lots to listen to, everybody. Check it out. And that's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.